And how about anybody watching?
That's Alfred Knopf.
So I should point out, because it fooled me, I didn't realize that there were so many appendices in the book.
Yeah.
And I thought we had 100 pages to go, but then
Yeah.
in fact, we have 40 pages to go.
And so what
there-
chapter are we on?
8.
Hmm?
8.
8. Okay, I'll find it then.
Look at that. Ann Doyle's been gone for 3 weeks, and we've already harmonized our responses, so we speak at the same time. Great.
Yeah.
Okay, we are continuing with our reading and discussion of Kafka's The Trial. We are well into chapter 8, which is a fairly long chapter, and so we're starting in the middle. In the Schocken edition that I have, we are on page 179. And the setup is that Joseph K. has gone to see his lawyer, who he thinks he's going to fire. But when he gets there, he finds another client of the lawyer and the lawyer's assistant, Lenny, who Joseph K. is having an affair with. And Joseph K., we discover, is a very jealous fellow. With that, I will ask.
Duncan, can I read one sentence here?
Yes, you can.
At the back, I just came across it. It's just goes to our discussion. It says, but since the trial, according to the author himself, was never to get as far as the highest court, in a certain sense, the novel was interminable. That is to say, it could be prolonged into infinity.
Yeah,
I think
we know that from experience.
Yes, some of the group would claim that that's exactly what's going on.
Yes.
If we're supposed to, in other words, we understand what's happening.
Yeah. How about the first words of where we're starting our reading?
How close you've got.
How you're putting your heads together.
Yep.
So you got, yeah.
Well, look at you two huddled together is what I have.
So you've got your heads together, right, Lynn?
We're all in the same place.
Oh, okay. So that's the second sentence. That's the second sentence in the paragraph that I started.
Okay.
Anyway, Ann
slightly
Doyle can decide exactly where we are, and she can read from that point.
Because I listened back. So you've got your heads together, cried Lenny, who had returned with the soup bowl and was standing in the doorway. They were indeed sitting so close to each other that at the slightest movement they would have bumped their heads together. The merchant, who was in any case very small, was hunched up so that Kay was forced to bend low in order to hear everything. Just a moment, cried Kay, motioning to Lenny with an impatient wave of his hand, which was still resting on the merchant's. He wanted me to tell him about my case, the merchant said to Lenny. Go on then. Tell him all about it, she said. She spoke condescendingly, but affectionately to him. Kay was annoyed. He now recognized that the man was of some value to him. At least he had some experience and was perfectly able to pass it on. Lenny had probably misjudged him. He looked on with irritation as Lenny took the candle from the merchant, who had been holding on to it all this time, wiped his hand with her apron, and then knelt down beside him to scrape off some wax that had dripped onto his trousers. You were about to tell me about the hole in the corner, advocates, said Kay, pushing Lenny's hand away without further comment. What are you after? Lenny asked, giving Kay a gentle slap and going about her work. Yes, the hole in the corner, advocate, said the merchant, rubbing his brow as if in thought. Kay tried to prompt him. You wanted quick results, so you went to the hole in the corner, advocates. Quite right, said the merchant, but he did not continue. Perhaps he doesn't want to talk about it in front of Lenny, thought Kay. He restrained his impatience to hear any more just now, and did not press the merchant any further. Gonna
"Hear you announce me?" he asked Lenny instead. "Of course," she said, "and the advocate's waiting for you. Leave Block alone now. You can talk to him later, for he's staying here." Kay still hesitated. "Are you staying here?" he asked the traveller. He wanted the man to speak for himself. He disliked the way Lenny discussed him as if he were absent. He was filled with obscure irritation today against Lenny. Again, it was Lenny who did the speaking. "He often sleeps here." "Sleeps here?" cried Kay. He had thought that the traveller would wait only till the interview with the advocate was brought to a speedy conclusion, and that then they would go off together to discuss the whole business thoroughly in private. "Yes," said Lenny, "everyone isn't like you, Joseph, getting an interview with the advocate at any hour they choose. It doesn't even seem to strike you as surprising that a sick man like the advocate should agree to see you at 11 o'clock at night. You take all that your friends do for you far too much as a matter of course. Well, your friends, or I at least, like doing things for you. I don't ask for thanks, and I don't need any thanks, except that I want you to be fond of me." Fond of you, thought Kay, and only after framing the words did it occur to him. But I am fond of her. Yes, he said, ignoring the rest of her remarks. He agrees to see me because I'm his client. If I needed others' help, even to get an interview with my lawyer, I'd have to be bowing and scraping at every turn. How difficult he is today, isn't he? Said Lenny to the traveller. Now it's my turn to be treated as if I were absent, thought Kay, and his irritation extended to the traveller too, when the latter, copying Lenny's discourtesy, remarked, "But the advocate has other reasons for agreeing to see him. He has a much more interesting case than mine. Besides, it's only beginning, probably still at a hopeful stage, and so the advocate likes handling it. You'll see a difference later on." Yes, said Lenny, regarding the traveller laughingly. What a tongue wagger. Here she turned to Kay and went on, "You mustn't believe a word he says. He's a nice fellow, but his tongue wags far too much. Perhaps that's why the advocate can't bear him." Joan.
Anyhow, he never consents to see him unless he's in the mood. I've tried my best to change that, but it can't be done. Only fancy, sometimes I tell the advocate Block is here, and he puts off seeing him for 3 days together. And then if Block isn't on the spot when he's called for, his chance is gone, and I have to announce him all over again. That's why I let Block sleep here, for it has happened before that the advocate has rung for him in the middle of the night. So Block has to be ready night and day. It sometimes happens, too, that the advocate changes his mind once he has discovered that Block actually is on the spot and refuses the interview. Kay threw a questioning glance at the traveller, who nodded and said, with the same frankness as before, or perhaps merely discomposed by a feeling of shame. Yes, one becomes very dependent on one's advocate in the course of time. He's just pretending to complain, said Lenny, for he likes sleeping here, as he has often told me. She went over to a small door and pushed it open. Would you like to see his bedroom? She asked. Kay followed her and gazed from the threshold into a low-roofed chamber, which had room only for a narrow bed. One had to climb over the bedpost to get into the bed. At the head of it, in a recess in the wall, stood a candle, an inkwell, and a pen, carefully arranged beside a bundle of papers, probably documents concerning the traveler's case. Joe?
"Are you sleeping in the maid's room?" asked Kay, getting back to the businessman. "Lenny set it up for me," the businessman replied. "Helpful, Kay." I looked at him. It's very helpful. Kay looked at him for a long time. Perhaps the first impression he had had of the businessman had been the right one. He had experience because his trial had been going on for a long time. But he had paid dearly for that experience. Suddenly, Kay could no longer endure the sight of the businessman. "Put him to bed," he shouted to Lenny, who didn't seem to understand him at all. Nevertheless, he himself intended to go to the lawyer and, by dismissing him, to free himself not only from the lawyer, but also from Lenny and the businessman. But even before he got to the door, the businessman addressed him in a quiet voice. Mr. Kay. Kay turned round and looked at him angrily. "You've forgotten your promise," said the businessman, stretching up imploringly from his seat towards Kay. "You were going to tell me a secret." "Is that so?" said Kay, also casting his eyes over Lenny, who looked at him attentively. "Well, listen, it's hardly a secret any longer. I'm going to the lawyer now to dismiss him." "He's dismissing him," shouted the businessman, jumping up off the chair and running around the kitchen with his arms in the air. Again and again he shouted, "He's dismissing the lawyer." Lenny tried to launch herself at Kay, but the businessman got in her way, so she thumped him. With her fists clenched, she ran after Kay, who, however, had a big lead. He had already entered the lawyer's room when Lenny caught up with them. He had almost closed the door behind him, but Lenny, who was holding the door open with her foot, grabbed him by the arm and tried to pull him back. However, he squeezed her wrist so hard that she gave a cry of pain and had to let him go. She didn't dare to go into the room straight away. Kay locked the door in any case. Anne.
I've been waiting a long time for you, said the lawyer from the bed, laying on the table a document which he had been reading by the light of a candle and putting on a pair of spectacles through which he scrutinized Kay sharply. Instead of apologizing, Kay said, "I shan't detain you long." This remark, as it was no apology, the lawyer ignored, saying, "I shall not see you again at such a late hour." "That agrees with my intentions," retorted Kay. The lawyer gave him a questioning look and said, "Sit down, since you ask me to," said Kay, pulling up a chair to the bedside table and seating himself. "I fancied I heard you locking the door," said the lawyer. "Yes," said Kay, "that was because of Lenny." He was not thinking of shielding anyone, but the lawyer went on. "Has she been pestering you again?" "Pestering me?" asked Kay. "Yes," said the lawyer, chuckling until stopped by a fit of coughing, after which he began to chuckle once more. "I suppose you can't have helped noticing that she pesters you?" He asked, patting Kay's hand, which in his nervous distraction he had put on the bedside table and now hastily withdrew. "You don't attach much importance to it," went on the lawyer as Kay remained silent. "So much the better. Or else I might have had to apologize for her. It's a peculiarity of hers, which I have long forgiven her, and which I wouldn't mention now had it not been for your locking the door. This peculiarity of hers, well, you're the last person I should have to explain it to, but you're looking so bewildered that I feel I must. This peculiarity of hers consists in her finding nearly all accused men attractive. She makes up to all of them, loves them all, and is evidently also loved in return. She often tells me about these affairs to amuse me when I allow her. It doesn't surprise me so much as it seems to surprise you. If you have the right eye for these things, you can see that accused men are often attractive. It's a remarkable phenomenon, almost a natural law, for of course the act of being accused makes no alteration in a man's appearance that is immediately obvious and recognizable. Next.
But it's not like with other legal matters. Most of them remain in their usual way of life, and if they have a good lawyer looking after them, the trial doesn't get in their way. But there are nonetheless those who have experience in these matters who can look at a crowd, however big, and tell you which among them is facing a charge. How can they do that, you will ask? My answer will not please you. It is simply that those who are facing a charge are the most attractive. It cannot be their guilt that makes them attractive. It's not all of them are guilty. At least that's what I, as a lawyer, have to say. And nor can it be the proper punishment that has made them attractive, as not all of them are punished. So it can only be the proceedings leveled against them take some kind of hold on them. Whatever the reason, some of these attractive people are indeed very attractive. That all of them are attractive, even Block, the pitiful worm that he is. As the lawyer finished what he was saying, Kay was fully in control of himself. He had even nodded conspicuously at his last few words in order to confirm to himself the view that he had already formed, that the lawyer was trying to confuse him, as he always did, by making general and irrelevant observations and thus distract him from the main question of what he was actually doing for Kay's trial. The lawyer must have noticed that Kay was offering him more resistance than before, as he became silent, giving Kay the chance to speak himself. And then as Kay also remained silent, he asked, "Did you have a particular reason for coming to see me today?" "Yes," said Kay, putting his hand up to slightly shade his eyes from the light of the candle so that he could see the lawyer better. "I wanted to tell you that I'm withdrawing my representation from you with immediate effect." Next, please. Tom.
Do I understand you rightly? Asked the advocate, half propping himself up in the bed with one hand on the pillows. I expect so, said Kay, sitting bolt upright as if on guard. Well, that's a plan we can at least discuss, said the advocate after a pause. It's no plan, it's a fact, said Kay. Maybe, said the advocate, but we mustn't be in too much of a hurry. He used the word we as if he had no intention of letting Kay detach himself, as if he meant to remain at least Kay's advisor, if not his official agent. It's not a hurried decision, said Kay, slowly getting up and retreating behind his chair. I've thought it well over, perhaps even for too long. It is my final decision. Then you might allow me a few comments, said the advocate, throwing off his coverings and sitting on the edge of the bed, his bare legs sprinkled with white hairs, trembled with cold. He asked Kay to hand him a rug from the sofa. Kay fetched the rug and said, "It's quite unnecessary for you to expose yourself to a chill." "I have grave enough reasons for it," said the advocate, wrapping the bedquilt round his shoulders and tucking the rug around his legs. "Your uncle is a friend of mine, and I've grown fond of you too in the course of time. I admit it freely. It's nothing to be ashamed of." This outburst of sentiment from the old man was most unwelcome to Kay, for it compelled him to be more explicit in his statements, which he would have liked to avoid, and disconcerted him too, as he admitted to himself, although without in the least affecting his decision. "I am grateful for your friendly attitude," he said, "and I appreciate that you have done all you could do for what you thought to be my advantage. But for some time now, I've been growing convinced that your efforts are not enough. I shall not, of course, attempt to thrust my opinions on a man so much older and more experienced than myself. If I have unwittingly seemed to do so, please forgive me, but I have grave enough reasons for it. To use your own phrase, and I am convinced that it is necessary to take much more energetic steps in this case of mine than have been taken so far. Duncan.
Where's Duncan?
He's muted. Duncan, you're on mute.
I understand you, said the lawyer. You are feeling impatient. I'm not impatient, said Kay, a little irritated and therefore less careful in his choice of words. You must have noticed on my first visit here when I came with my uncle that I did not take my case very seriously. If I wasn't forcefully reminded of it, so to speak, I forgot it completely. Still, my uncle insisted on my engaging you as my representative, and I did so to please him. One would naturally have expected the case to weigh even less on my conscience after that, since, after all, one engages a lawyer to shift the burden a little on his shoulders. But the very opposite of that resulted. I was never so plagued by my case as I have been since engaging you to represent me. When I stood alone, I did nothing at all, yet it hardly bothered me. After acquiring a lawyer, on the other hand, I felt that the stage was set for something to happen. I waited with unceasing and growing expectancy for your intervention, and you did nothing whatsoever. I admit that you gave me information about the court which I probably could not have obtained elsewhere, but that is hardly adequate assistance for a man who feels this thing secretly encroaching upon him and literally touching him to the quick. Cade pushed the chair back and now stood upright, his hands in his jacket pockets. After a certain stage in one's practice, said the lawyer quietly in a low voice, nothing really new ever happens. However, many of my clients have reached the same point in their cases and stood before me in exactly the same frame of mind as you and said the same things. Well, said Kay, then they were all as much in the right as I am. That doesn't counter my arguments. I wasn't trying to counter them, said the lawyer, but I should like to add that I expected you to show more judgment than the others, especially as I have given you more insight into the workings of the court and my own procedure than I usually give my clients. And now I cannot help seeing that in spite of everything, you haven't enough confidence in me. You don't make things very easy for me. All right, back to Anne Doyle.
Okay. How the advocate was humbling himself before Kay, and without any regard for the dignity of his position, which is surely at its most sensitive on this point. Why did he do this? By all appearances, he was a busy advocate and a rich man too. Neither the loss of income nor the loss of a client could in themselves mean very much to him. Moreover, he was ailing and should be taking good care to shed some of his work. But still he clung to Kay. Why? Was it a personal attachment to his uncle? Or did he really regard Kay's case as so extraordinary and hope to gain prestige from it, either in Kay's eyes or, and this possibility could not be excluded, in the eyes of his friends in the court? Nothing could be gathered from his demeanour, however certainly Kay studied him. One might almost suppose that he was deliberately masking his expression in order to assess the effect of his words. But he clearly interpreted Kay's silence only too much in his own favour when he continued. You will have noticed that although I have a large practice, I do not employ any assistants. Once it was otherwise. There was a time when some young lawyers worked for me, but now I work alone. This is partly due to the changes in my practice, in that I restrict myself more and more to cases such as yours, and partly to the more profound experience I have of these cases. I found that I was unable to let anyone else do this work without violating my obligations to my clients and to the duties I've taken on. But the decision to do all the work myself had the natural consequence that I had to refuse almost all those who asked me to represent them, and was only able to accept those I had a personal interest in. And there are enough poor wretches, indeed some not far from here, who are glad to snap up my scraps I throw them. On top of that, I became ill from overwork, but still I did not regret my decision. Donna?
I ought to have taken a firmer stand and refused more cases. But the policy of devoting myself single-mindedly to the cases I did accept has proved both necessary and successful, judging from the results. I once read a very finely worded description of the difference between an advocate for ordinary legal rights and an advocate for cases such as these. It ran like this: the one advocate leads his client by a slender thread until the verdict is reached, but the other lifts his client on his shoulders from the start and carries him bodily without once letting him down until the verdict is reached, and even beyond it. That is true, but it is not true to say that I do not at all regret devoting myself to this great task. When, as in your case, my labours are as completely misunderstood, then, yes, then, and only then, I come near to regretting it. This speech, instead of convincing Kay, only made him more impatient. He fancied that the very tone of the advocate's voice suggested what was in store for him and should prove complacent. The same old exhortations would begin again, the same references to the progress of the petition, to the more gracious mood of this or that official, while not forgetting the enormous difficulties that stood in the way. In short, the same stale platitudes would be brought out again, either to delude him with vague menaces. That must be stopped once and for all. So he said, "What steps do you propose to take in my case if I retain you as my representative?" The advocate meekly accepted even this insulting question and replied, "I should continue with those measures that I have already begun." I knew it's okay. Well, it's a waste of time to go on talking. I'll make one more attempt, said the advocate, as if it were Kay, who was at fault and not himself. I have an idea that what makes you so wrong-headed, not only in your judgment of my capacities, but also in your general behaviour, is the fact that you have been treated too well. Although you are an accused man, or rather more precisely, that you have been treated with negligence, with apparent negligence. There's a reason for the negligence, of course. It's often safer to be in chains than to be free. But I'd like to show you how other accused men are treated, and perhaps you may learn a thing or two. But now send for Block. You'd better unlock the door and stay here beside the bed table. With pleasure, said Kay. Fulfilling these injunctions, he was always ready to learn. As a precaution, however, he asked once more, "You realize that I am dispensing with your services?" "Yes," said the advocate, "but you may change your mind about it yet." He lay back in bed again, drew the quilt over his knees, turned his face to the wall, then he rang the bell. Joan.
Almost at the same moment, Lenny was on the spot, darting quick glances to learn what was happening. She seemed to find it reassuring that Kay was sitting so quietly beside the advocate's bed. She nodded to him with a smile, but he gazed at her blankly. "Fetch Block," said the advocate. Instead of fetching Block, however, she merely went to the door, called out, "Block, the advocate wants you," and then, probably because the advocate had his face turned to the wall and was paying no attention to her, insinuated herself behind Kay, where she distracted him during all the rest of the proceedings by leaning over the back of his chair or running her fingers gently and tenderly enough through his hair and over his temples. In the end, Kay sought to prevent her by holding on to her hand, which, after a little resistance, she surrendered to him. Block had answered the summons by coming immediately, yet he hesitated outside the door, apparently wondering whether he was to come in or not. He raised his eyebrows and cocked his head as if listening for the summons to be repeated. Kay could have encouraged the man to come in, but he was determined to make a final break, not only with the advocate, but with all the persons in the house, and so he remained immobile. Lenny, too, was silent. Block noticed that at least no one was turning him away, and he tiptoed into the room with anxious face and hands clutched behind him, leaving the door open to secure his threat. He did not once look at Kay, but kept his eyes fixed on the humped-up quilt beneath which the advocate was not even visible, since he had shifted close to the wall. Joe, please.
Then they heard his voice. Block here? Yeah. His question gave Block, who had already advanced some distance, a kind of a push in the chest and then another in the back. He staggered and then came to a standstill, all bent over, and said, "At your service." "What do you want?" asked the lawyer. "You've come in at an awkward time." "Wasn't I called?" said Block, more to himself than to the lawyer. But he put his hands up in self-protection and was ready to run away. "You were called," said the lawyer, "but you still come at an awkward time." And after a pause, he added, "You always come at an awkward time." When the lawyer started speaking, Block stopped looking at the bed. Instead, he stared vaguely into a corner, simply listened, as if the sight of the speaker was too dazzling for him to bear. It's also difficult for him to hear, because the lawyer spoke against the wall and did so quietly and quickly. "Do you want me to leave?" asked Block. "Well, you're here for once," the lawyer said. "Stay." One could have assumed that instead of granting Block's wish, the lawyer had threatened him, for example, with a beating, because now Block really began to tremble. "Yesterday," said the lawyer, "I was with my friend the third judge, and I gradually brought the conversation round to you. Do you want to know what he said?" "Oh, please," Block. The lawyer didn't answer immediately. Block repeated the plea and made as if to kneel. Then Kay turned on him. "What are you doing?" he cried. Since Lenny had prevented him from shouting, he grasped at her other hand as well. His grip was not one of love. She gave frequent cries of pain and tried to take her hands away from him. However, Block was punished for Kay's outburst, because the lawyer asked him, "Who's your lawyer?" "You are," said Block. "And besides me?" asked the lawyer. "No one but you," said Block. "Don't take advice from anyone else," said the lawyer. Block understood fully what he meant. Measured Kay with hostile glances, shaking his head violently at him. Had this behavior been translated into words, they would have been rough curses. To think that Kay had wanted to talk to this person amicably about his own case. "Won't bother you anymore," said Kay, leaning back in his chair. "Kneel down or crawl on all fours. You want. Don't worry about it." Block still had a sense of honor, at least as far as Kay was concerned, because he walked towards him, shaking his fists, and shouted as loudly as he dared in the presence of the lawyer, "You mustn't speak to me like that. Why are you insulting me? Pickleball here, in front of Dr. Huld, where both you and I are tolerated only out of compassion. You aren't a better person than me, because you're being prosecuted and put on trial as well. But you're still a gentleman, and I'm just as much of a gentleman, not even more so. And I also want to be addressed as such, especially by you. However, if you think that you're the favorite because you're allowed to sit here and listen quietly while I, as you put it, crawl on all fours, then I'll remind you of the old legal saying, for the suspect, it is better to move than to be still, because the one who is still, and always, without knowing it, finds himself weighed in the balance with his sins. And
Kay said not a word. He merely stared in unwinking astonishment at this madman. What a change had come over the fellow in the last hour. Was it his lawsuit that agitated him in such an extent that he could not distinguish friend from foe? Did he not see that the lawyer was deliberately humiliating him for no other purpose on this occasion than to make a display of his power before Kay, and so perhaps cow Kay into acquiescence as well? Yet if Block was incapable of perceiving this, or if he were so afraid of the lawyer that he could not allow himself to perceive it, how did it come about that he was sly enough or brave enough to deceive the lawyer and deny that he was having recourse to other lawyers? And how could he be so foolhardily as to attack Kay, knowing that Kay might betray his secret? His foolhardiness went even further. He now approached the lawyer's bed and laid a complaint against Kay. "Dr. Hould," he said, "did you hear what this man said to me? His case is only a few hours old compared with mine, and yet, though I have been 5 years involved in my case, he takes it on himself to give me advice. He even abuses me, knows nothing at all, and abuses me, who have studied as closely as any poor wits allow every precept of duty, piety, and tradition." Pay no heed to anyone," said the lawyer, "and do what seems right to yourself." "Certainly," said Block, as if to give himself confidence, and then, with a heavy side glance, knelt down close beside the bed. "I'm on my knees, Dr. Hould," he said, but the lawyer made no reply. Block cautiously caressed the quilt with one hand. In the silence that now reigned, Lenny said, freeing herself from Kay, "You're hurting me. Let go. I want to be with Block." She went over and sat on the edge of the bed. Block was greatly pleased by her coming. He made lively gestures, though in dumb show, imploring her to plead his cause with the lawyer. Obviously, he was urgently in need of any information which the lawyer might give, but perhaps he only wanted to hand it on to his other lawyers for exploitation. Lenny apparently knew exactly the right way to coax the lawyer. She pointed to his hand and pouted her lips as if giving a kiss. Block immediately kissed the hand, repeating the performance twice at Lenny's instigation. But the lawyer remained persistently unresponsive. Then Lenny, displaying the fine lines of her taut figure, bent over close to the old man's face and stroked his long white hair. That finally evoked an answer. "I hesitate to tell him," said the lawyer, and one could see him shaking his head, perhaps only the better to enjoy the pressure of Lenny's hand. Next.
Block listened closely with his head lowered, as if by listening he were breaking an order. "What makes you so wary about it?" asked Lenny. Kay had the feeling he was listening to a contrived dialogue that had been repeated many times, that would be repeated many more times, and that for Block alone it would never lose its freshness. What has his behavior been like today?" asked the lawyer instead of an answer. Before Lenny said anything, she looked down at Block and watched him a short while as he raised his hands towards her and rubbed them together imploringly. Finally, she gave a serious nod, turned back to the lawyer, and said, "He's been quiet and industrious." This was an elderly businessman, a man whose beard was long, and he was begging a young girl to speak on his behalf. Even if there was some plan behind what he did, there was nothing that could reinstate him in the eyes of his fellow man. Kay could not understand how the lawyer could have thought this performance would win him over. Even if he had done nothing earlier to make him want to leave, then this scene would have done so. It was almost humiliating, even for the onlooker. So these were the lawyer's methods, which Kay fortunately had not been exposed to for long, to let the client forget the whole world and leave him with nothing but the hope of reaching the end of his trial by this deluded means. He was no longer a client, he was a lawyer's dog. If the lawyer had ordered him to crawl into the bed as if it were a kennel and to bark out from under it, then he would have done so with enthusiasm. Kay listened to all of this, testing it and thinking it over, as if he had been given the task of closely observing everything spoken here inform a higher office about it, and write a report. And what has he been doing all day? Asked the lawyer. I kept him locked in the maid's room all day, said Lenny, so that he wouldn't stop me from doing my work. That's where he usually stays. From time to time, I look in through the spy hole to see what he is doing. And each time he was kneeling on the bed and reading the papers you gave him, propped up on the windowsill. That made a good impression on me, as the window only opens onto the air shaft and hardly gives any light. It showed how obedient he is, that he was even reading in those conditions. I'm pleased to hear it, said the lawyer, but did he understand what he was reading? Tom.
All this time, block slips were moving unceasingly. He was obviously formulating the answers he hoped Lenny would make. Well, of course, said Lenny, that's something I don't know with certainty. At any rate, I could tell that he was thorough in his reading. He never got past the same page all day, and he was following the lines with his fingers. Whenever I looked at him, he was sighing to himself as if reading cost him a great effort. Apparently, the book you gave him to read is difficult to understand. Yes, said the advocate, these scriptures are difficult enough. I don't believe he really understands them. They're meant only to give him an inkling how hard the struggle is that I have to carry on in his defence. And for whom do I carry on this hard struggle? It's almost ridiculous to put it into words. I do it for Block. He must learn to understand what that means. Did he read without stopping? Almost without a stop, answered Lenny. He asked me only once for a drink of water, and I handed it to him through the ventilator. Then about 8 o'clock, I let him out and gave him something to eat. Block gave a fleeting glance at Kay, as if expecting to seem impressed by this virtuous record. His hope seemed to be mounting, his movements were less constrained, and he kept shifting his knees a little. It was all the more noticeable that the advocate's next words struck him rigid. You are praising him up, said the advocate, but that only makes it more difficult for me to tell him. For the judge's remarks were by no means favourable, either to Block or his case. Not favourable, asked Lenny. How can that be possible? Block was gazing at her as intently as if he believed her capable of giving a new and favourable turn to the words long pronounced by the judge. Not favourable, said the advocate. He was even annoyed when I mentioned Block. Don't speak about Block, he said. But he's my client, I said. You're wasting yourself on that man, he said. I don't think his case is hopeless, said I. Well, you're wasting yourself on him, he repeated. I don't believe it, said I. Block is sincerely concerned about his case and devotes himself to it. He almost lives in my house to keep in touch with the proceedings. One doesn't often find such zeal. Of course, he's personally rather repulsive. His manners are bad and he's dirty, but as a client, he is beyond reproach. Duncan?
I said beyond reproach, and it was a deliberate exaggeration. To that he replied, Block is merely cunning. He has acquired a lot of experience and knows how to keep on postponing the issue. But his ignorance is even greater than his cunning. What do you think he would say if he discovered that his case had actually not begun yet? If he were to be told that the bell marking the start of the proceedings hadn't even been rung? Quiet there, Block, said the lawyer, for Block was just rising up on trembling legs, obviously to implore an explanation. This is the first time the lawyer had addressed Block directly at any length. With lackluster eyes, he looked down. His glance was partly vague and partly turned towards Block, who slowly sank back under it on his knees again. That remark of the judge's has no possible significance for you, said the lawyer. Don't get into a panic at every word. If you do it again, I'll never tell you anything. I can't begin a statement without you gazing at me as if your final sentence had come. You should be ashamed to behave like that before my client, and you're destroying his confidence in me. What's the matter with you? You're still alive. You're still under my protection. Your panic is senseless. You read somewhere or other that a man's condemnation often comes unexpectedly from some chance person at some odd time. With many reservations, that is certainly true. But it is equally true that your panic disgusts me. It appears to betray a lack of the necessary confidence in me. All that I said was to report a remark made by a judge. You know quite well that in these matters opinions differ so much that the confusion is impenetrable. Anne.
This judge, for example, understands the case as starting at a different point from my understanding of it. It's a difference of opinion, that's all. At a certain stage of the trial, according to an old custom, a bell is rung. In the opinion of this judge, the trial begins at that point. I can't give you just now all the arguments against this view, and you wouldn't understand them. It's sufficient for you to know that there are many arguments against it. Embarrassed, Block ran his fingers over the surface of the blanket. For the moment, his anxiety at the judge's words made him forget his own inferior position as the advocate. He thought only of himself and turned the words over and over in his mind. Block, Lenny cautioned him, pulling him up by his collar. Leave the blanket alone and listen to the advocate. That's the end of 8.
Mm.
A little bit of a paragraph.
I have another 3 lines.
Okay, I have no more.
You have no more.
We have no more. So, Donna, if you have more, read it.
Coming into me, I'll read the 3 lines. Kay did not understand how the advocate could ever have imagined that this performance would win him over. If the advocate had not already succeeded in alienating him, this scene would have finished him once and for all. Shall I continue?
No.
Okay.
I think we should stop.
Chapter 8, John.
Okay.
Is that the end? This chapter was left unfinished.
Yeah.
Is that,
That's
so
the end of
you're reading the finished part or?
I finished chapter 8 according to me.
Okay,
Yeah, mine says it's finished chapter 8, but there is a chapter 9.
yeah, chapter 9.
And
And
there's a
10.
chapter 10 called The End,
Yeah,
Yeah.
which is very short.
yeah.
Well, that really clarified a lot, don't you think?
You know, it's amazing that through all of this, he has never once asked what he's accused of.
No.
Neither has Block.
Accepts that.
No.
It's not clear that Block understands what he's accused of either.
No.
At least it's not discussed.
It seems we're kind of getting used to this legal system. It seems to be a situation where you don't need to be accused of anything for it to be on.
Yeah.
And we've learned one important little legal principle out of this, that there's a huge range of what we would call case law about when a trial commences.
Yeah.
It's with the ringing of a bell, but nobody agrees on when the bell
No.
which is fascinating.
There's a little clue here. When the advocate is defending himself against Kay's criticisms, when he says that many of my clients have reached the same point, meaning that all this, emphasizing probably what we already know, that the point is never, they've never reached a conclusion to anything. It just keeps going on and on.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is one chilling phrase in the lawyer talking to Block when he says, you're still alive. They're still alive.
You're alive, right?
It's the first indication that
Don't be. Yeah.
Yeah, you should be happy you're still alive.
yeah, if you're still being defended, you're still alive. Yeah, you don't be waiting. Case. Maybe all cases have the same ending in this country. Do you notice that there's no political system
No.
at all? It's a society that only has lawyers. And
Doesn't this reflect a little bit about what's going on with this poor man who's going to be sent to Uganda? They aren't looking for any of, there's no reason behind any of it. And he's not, yeah.
But the reason behind it all is to frighten people from emigration to America. This could happen here. And the
Okay,
more,
so what is the reasoning here? Is there any reasoning?
well, there's in the book, there's no reason for anything.
I just like the part there about when Lenny is talking about, or the advocate is talking about the book that she gave him, that he's reading. And there's a line, he says, but did he understand what he was reading? I think
And
that's.
And he's reading in the dark.
I think it's relevant to ourselves,
Mhm.
But I wonder did Kafka just throw that in, yeah.
Message.
So this, in a sense, is the blackest of black humor,
Yeah.
in the sense that it's a system that apparently nobody understands. And nobody understands when things really begin, and nobody understands when things really end.
Or admits it.
or needs to know.
Mhm.
No.
Yeah. But let me go back to perhaps an easier point, which is Lenny's attraction to accused clients.
Yeah.
Which, of course, I would say that apparently, from what we know so far, is that these accused clients are always on edge.
Yeah.
That if their case is resolved, yeah, it's hard to tell, but it's something. Yeah, I don't know.
Again, he has that thing about, when they walk into the maid's room, that you have to climb over the bedposts
Yeah.
to get into the bed.
Yeah.
He kind of repeats this kind of stuff. Yeah.
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 It reminded me of Crime and Punishment, where Raskolnikov, his bedroom was so tiny. It just.
They don't seem to have electrical power. Everything is done by candlelight.
Yeah.
Well, I think Migo finds this very tedious also because he just now appeared and he loves Monday Book Club.
Yeah.
So instead of having comments from the peanut section, we're having comments from the cat section.
He's not saying anything. He just showed us what he thought.
That noise might have been from mine. I don't know if you heard it. Mind commenting on your cat.
Oh, boy.
Well, just taking it at face value, I mean, earlier in this chapter, we had Block talking to Kay and really acting as if he knew a lot about the legal system.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
And then when the advocate calls Block into the room, it seems the whole point of that performance is to show Kay how little
Yeah.
Block knows about the legal system, and that Block should be groveling on the floor before the lawyer's feet.
Yeah.
mm,
Yeah. He asks, "Who is your lawyer?" He asks the
yeah,
person,
Yeah.
and Locke gives a different answer in front of Kay.
yeah,
Yeah. Doesn't admit to other consultations.
Hmm.
But the advocate is trying to debase Block in order to debase Kay.
Put Kay off resigning, or
Mhm.
him.
Yeah.
By convincing Cade that he needs the lawyer because
Yeah, this could happen you.
he couldn't possibly understand the legal system on his own.
Well, that could be, but I think maybe just the sick personality that wants other people to be subordinate.
Yes. Yeah.
Well,
Just takes,
my impression is that this is, I mean, to put it in the pop terms, I mean, this whole thing is kind of a sadomasochistic
yeah.
deal.
Yeah.
That all the way up to the top. Now, the furthest we go up the chain so far, maybe is the little bit that's reported to us by the lawyer of his conversation with the judges or the
yeah,
judge, which I got the impression that the lawyer is treated by the judges very much like the lawyer treats his clients.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
I'm actually wondering whether this is a legal system at all,
Mhm.
or like a religious system.
mm,
And you get the kissing of the hand and all this kind of stuff there.
Yeah.
And
Ooh.
I mean, is it a comment on the role of religion in life? And your life is the trial.
yeah,
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, to put it in contemporary terms, I wish I think that the Trump administration would like Obrigo to bow down and kiss the ring.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then they probably wouldn't send him to Uganda. They may just stick him in.
Well, they put him in charge of the FBI or something, you know?
Are they trying to put him into a prison in Uganda or civilian life?
Oh, I'd say it's prison. You see, their equivalent in the UK, the Conservatives had this plan to deal, if you have not be familiar as we are here, they plan to deal with people arriving on small boats into Britain
Oh,
to
yeah.
immediately move them to Uganda.
mm,
Oh,
I think that was actually Rwanda, if I remember correctly.
Rwanda, I beg your pardon, Rwanda, yeah, quite
so
right.
when they get there, they're put in prison?
Well, they would be, oh no, goodness, they wouldn't put them in prison. Goodness gracious, no, but it would be a confined space, locked gates,
mm,
processing center, and they could spend the rest of their lives there.
Oh, my God.
So basically, detention without trial.
Hmm.
as our thousand
And banishment.
trained without trial, and in America's favorite ally. So nothing should surprise that these techniques are being used now in the homeland.
Mm.
They're used all around the world. But so, but kiss the rig. That's kiss the rig time. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, let's look at the other thing, which is Ghislaine
Oh, yeah.
and what has happened with her, and Imbasar, and a fella is sent from the Trump Department of Justice to talk with her. And, then they transfer her out of a fairly serious prison into a minimum security prison. And there's talk of her getting a pardon
Yeah.
if they think they can get away with it.
Trump can get away with it.
He gets away with everything.
Whatever, everything.
For the moment.
Mm.
For the moment. I think I'm just resistant to the idea that this could go on and on and on.
Mhm. Well,
So-
it's interesting for me to watch how Canada is handling all of this tariff business. They have quietly just closed the door on American exchange with America. They're not sending their power to us, their resources, their aluminum, their steel. They're just not doing business with America. And it's costing not only huge amounts of money, but we have all the needs in this country for crops to be reaped in the fall, and we just need aluminum and these minerals that Canada has been supplying, and I think
Are they-
America's really going to be in. Give it 6 months. Our big companies are leaving America; they're going to Canada, like Coca-Cola,
Mhm.
because the aluminum is more expensive coming by tariff than just doing business in Canada.
Yeah.
Right.
Shocking.
Yep. Are they receiving goods from us? And I hadn't heard.
They don't know. They're taking our goods off their shelves. No food products, liquor products, wines, everything been boxed up. They're not selling it. They're not doing business
That's
with.
a lot of stuff.
Yeah. The problem, just like, we'll bring it back to Kafka. Just like
Yeah.
with Joseph K., he is up against an opaque system,
Mm-hmm.
which he's trying to get some clarity on. But, it doesn't seem like anybody has any clarity, with the possible exception of Lenny.
Yeah.
Lenny seems to have found her niche in the midst of all of this. And she doesn't seem to be as crazy as everybody else.
Is she a comfort giver?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think that this is the whole thing about how she's attracted to the accused,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and actually she probably gives more aid and comfort than the lawyer does. The lawyer just seems to be as lost as anybody else, but he gets paid for being lost, so that's a difference. But I mean, Block is caught up in the system. Joseph K. has come to resign or to fire the lawyer with some idea that he's going to take over his own legal defense.
the lawyer is obviously very old.
Mm.
And I don't know what that is.
I believe this lawyer in the movie with Tony Perkins and Orson Welles. I believe that Orson Welles plays the part of the lawyer.
Mhm.
And this is when Orson was a very sizable fellow.
Was he old? He wasn't old, though.
I don't know. Did anybody?
They keep talking about this man's long gray hair, the gray hairs on his legs. He had been a friend of the uncle
The
or
uncle.
Kay's, or he's been doing this for a long time.
He's been doing it for a long time.
And he's had at one stage many employees.
Mm.
He decided that the best way to represent people was only himself, and this gone through that growth and cutting back phase. But that's years.
They mentioned some case that was 5 years long and still going on.
That's Block's case.
That's Block's case, yeah.
Locke,
And they haven't even rung the bell to get it started.
yeah, Locke says that he describes Kay's case as a case that can still count the hours that have gone on it.
Mm.
You know, so obviously nobody remembers how long. They can tell you how many hundred or thousand hours they have worked on some cases.
Mm. And Block would think that his case comes before Kay's.
Well, if he's around for 5 years, so it's,
Yeah,
he's at least
he's
5
on the books.
Yeah.
Oh my. So we'll finish this up next week, you think?
Doubt it.
No, next week we have
Close.
our
We're
own.
close.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh,
that's
boy,
good.
next week is Labor Day. Is that going to make any difference?
Oh.
Does it make any difference?
7 pages.
It
I
may
can
with
do
me.
Oh, let me ask you, Joan, are you going to be here next week?
Yeah.
I'm going to my daughter's for dinner, but we may be through in time for me to,
Okay, so you're a maybe.
I'm a
Katrina?
maybe.
I'll be here.
Okay, and Anna?
Maybe,
Well, two
most
maybes.
likely, but I don't know if I'd be getting company or something like that.
Okay, and I think the
Yeah.
rest of us will be here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, would you like us to not finish the book next week when you're not
Well,
here?
I'll just read it.
Next week is the first Monday, though, right? Isn't
It
that-
is.
Right, that solves the problem right there. Okay, very good. Excellent.
So there is no escape from the book, guys. You come back the other side, it'll still be there.
Okay.
It'll be waiting.
Waiting.
Our reading club is an example of the book. Just goes on forever.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Maybe we should start it when we finish and go over it again, just to kind of
Yeah, but
No.
time probably things
Yeah.
will clarify, right?
clarify, take our time this time.
Yeah, go line by line on it.
But we should talk about what we're reading next, because if we finish this, or next week we won't read, if we're going to finish this the next week.
Yeah.
We'd be ordering or
We
Well,
won't
that's
finish it
true. We've
next
got
week.
2 weeks to get things.
get a new.
We need 2 weeks to get this finished.
Alice in Wonderland has been suggested.
Mm.
I would love to read that.
Yes, I think that would be a very different.
It would.
We could do
Yet
that
it
like
has a
Shakespeare.
connection at the same time. It has a connection.
Yes,
We could do that reading like Shakespeare and allocate roles such as the smiling cat and Alice, so
Yeah.
on to enjoy.
Yeah. But do I understand with Alice in Wonderland, which I have not read, that there's so much like anti-monarchy and like statements about the English society, like criticisms
Well, it had the Red King, the Red Queen who's off her head.
Mhm.
Well,
So I've never read it. I'd be interested in seeing what some of those,
my book is annotated, so it gives easy access to that information. Yeah.
Well, I'm hearing, I've heard 3 clear yeses. Let's do that. And I'm fine with doing it.
Me too.
You're
Yep.
fine with doing it? Okay, so, and that's an easy one to get. I mean, it's
Yes.
freely available online and libraries and all that kind of stuff.
Mm.
So should we try it?
Sure.
So both Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass, or Alice in Wonderland for now?
Yeah,
And
why
I
don't
think we should do one.
Do one.
Okay.
And
Let's
see.
commit to one. I think that's sufficient for the nonce.
Okay,
Yeah.
And it's not long.
no,
Probably it'll go very
I
fast.
think it'll go fast. That'll be good.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I have
So
112 pages in my book,
Yeah.
for
Alice in Wonderland.
Okay, and a lot of those are
And
pretty,
yeah, and then Through the Looking Glass is more. Let's see. Well, 218. Well, it's another 100 pages to do Through the Looking Glass.
okay.
Give
Well,
us
let's
an
commit.
opportunity
Let's
to
commit
examine the
to.
rabbit holes at first hand.
Hmm. So I think if we do one and then we decide if we want to continue on with Lewis Carroll.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's how we do it. So we have agreement that next Monday is going to be the sharing Monday.
Yep.
And then probably the week after that, we'll come close to finishing the trial. Maybe we might even finish it. And then let's see, that's 1, 2, the third week, we might start Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Okay. And I think personally, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start taking, I didn't realize there were so many appendixes, and I didn't realize that, he didn't, there's a lot of unfinished things.
Oh yeah, it's unfinished work. Yeah,
Mm.
I think you have to remember that as well. It's unedited,
Yeah.
His friend put it together.
and like you can see, I know Tom, you mentioned at the start that there are areas in the plot and character development that are wide open.
Mm.
There's so many unanswered questions and character.
Mhm.
And there was, I mean,
If he had a chance,
yeah.
he probably had ideas what to do with that. Take those 3 little girls who
Mm.
appeared in one thing. They're great little
Mm.
monsters. To pity to not use them elsewhere as well in the story. And the 3 characters who worked in the bank who also appear in the court.
Mm.
And under the stairs, what on earth was going on there? So like, and clearly it's partly cooked, what we have, and we have to allow for that.
Yeah, well, we have to allow for that. I mean, to take Block for an example, I mean, he's described as a tradesman, he's described
Merchant.
as a businessman, and he's described as a traveler.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I find it fascinating that just with that one thing there, description of what Block is, I find it radically different when somebody reads The Traveler.
Yeah.
Yes.
It
Yes.
does something different than when someone reads The Tradesman or
Yeah.
the businessman.
This is businessman, yeah. But he could be a self-employed salesman,
Mm.
Mhm.
Could be a Leopold Bloom, who is a self-employed traveler, and Odysseus, the name Odysseus means
Right. But I mean, there's so many words in this book, and some of them it's like, I feel confident if I read German,
yeah.
that the German would give a more definite stamp to one word over another.
You can bet your bottom dollar that
Mhm.
Word is about 40 characters long.
Mhm.
And it's
Ah.
über meine keinen Hans
Well, that, yes, that also, but
it's really worth getting the German version because you'd figure out where the word is
well,
eventually.
you know what? I actually have the German version.
Well, there you go.
And I should call it up and I should look at it. I have don't ask me why. I
it's-
did it a long time ago. It was like 99 cents or $1.99. I got the complete works of Franz Kafka in German.
Deutsch. Yeah.
Again.
Wow.
You know,
Did you read it?
You can
No,
you can
I don't know.
finish it off in German, Duncan, for us.
That's right. All right. Well,
Yeah.
anyway,
But I mean, Kafka wanted these destroyed. He wanted
Destroyed,
them,
yeah.
you know, he didn't want this published whatsoever. And
yeah, but he's such an ambivalent character. I would find it hard to believe that Kafka knew what he wanted.
yeah,
Well,
I
he
mean,
definitely said he didn't want his papers or anything published.
yeah,
like
yeah,
Virgil didn't want on his deathbed, he wanted the Aeneid destroyed.
yeah, yeah.
You know,
yes,
Think
yes. And you know, I mean, Kafka did bequeath all of this to his friend Max Brod,
Mhm.
and you know, he probably. I wouldn't be surprised if he intuited that Max was not going to destroy his stuff.
Yeah,
yeah.
So,
you'll never know.
anyway, you know, it's once again Kafka in that regard. I mean, he's like his stories. There's a lot of ambiguity in there. You know, what did he want and what did he not want and all that kind of stuff. So,
And at that point in his life, he was dealing with serious illness. Wonder what he, was he
well,
thinking?
he was, but also this was the best time of his love life in his entire life. You know, where he left Prague, he ended up, I think, in Berlin towards the end, and with his 18-year-old girlfriend,
Yeah.
who all reports were that they had a very successful relationship, you know, in the sense that, you know, both parties were happy and that in spite of the fact that he was dying of tuberculosis, it might have been the best time of his life.
How old was he at the time?
He died at age 40.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was very young.
Yeah.
Wow.
In 1924.
Short lives.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
He was an attractive young man.
Mhm.
But you know, I mean, based on letters to Felice, I wouldn't have wanted to be his girlfriend.
No.
He was a pretty wacky guy.
He was
a
wacky.
pretty wacky, ambivalent guy about absolutely everything.
Yeah.
So,
Well, maybe she was too.
well, maybe Tom can. Tom probably knows.
No, I don't. No. But I mean, there's a lot of them around at that time. All sorts of people. You know, you'd never know what they were doing, what they were up to, and what they really thought. Except we have Kafka's writings, and that's it, I suppose.
Yeah.
And his letters and his books. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay. Well, thank you
Okay.
all very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Duncan.
Duncan. Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Alrighty, here we go. I got two.
There we go.
Yep. There we are.